Victor John, also known as Vic, of Mount Royal, Carriacou, who resided in the United Kingdom, passed away in the UK at the age of 69. He was the husband of Elma, father of Charlotte, Stacey, Jenna, Leroy, Rolda and Randa, grandfather of 7, brother of Monica, Kenneth, Aaron, Jiff and Marella, nephew of Daphne, also known as Auntie TV Poon, uncle of many, brother-in-law of Joan, Sharon, Josephine, Bernard, Rudolph and Lennox. The funeral of the late Victor John, also known as Vic, of Mount Royal, Carriacou, who resided in the United Kingdom, will take place on Thursday, November 3rd in the United Kingdom. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Everall Williams, also known as Everall, of Darbo St. George, passed away on Tuesday, 11th October 2022 in the USA at the age of 62. He was the husband of Nicole Filbert Williams, son of Catherine Felix and Frank de Bellet, stepson of Walter Grenade, father of Igil Joseph in the USA, Tonell Griffith in Canada, Sheena Griffith in Trinidad, Carleen Bueta, Anika Joseph, also known as Keitha, Tumaika Ferguson, and Tamara Cave, also known as Tammy, all in Grenada, stepfather of Raquel Ferguson in Grenada, and Kimani Filbert in the USA, grandfather of 13, brother of Martin Felix, Cheryl Felix Joseph, Garth, Alistair and Alvin Felix, and Desmond de Bellet, all in the USA, Agatha, Denise, and Carol de Bellet in Grenada. Many in-laws, nieces, nephews, aunts, and uncles. Many other relatives and friends, including Denise Griffith, Norisa Joseph Francis, Grace Griffith, Becky Ann Ferguson, former comrades of the People's Revolutionary Army, massed band colleagues, former masqueraders of Everall and Associates, Spice revelers and Carib mass bands, the communities of Grove, Darbo, River Road, Four Roads, and neighbouring communities. The funeral of the late Everall Williams of Darbo St. George will take place on Saturday, November 5th in New Jersey, USA. Burial will be at the Fairmount Cemetery, New Jersey. Arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Avil John Dominic Henry, also known as Skrill, of St. James St. Andrew, passed away on Saturday, October 22nd, 2022, at the age of 81. He was the father of Dudley Powlett, Vaughn Dominic, Pamela, Leonard and Ecord Henry, Diana Otway, and Sujeth Roberts, stepfather of Brian Forrester, grandfather of Jeddies, Lillian, Kelsey, Garon, Ken Antonio, Caitlin, Tamela, Logan, Naya, Diamond, Keandre, Michaela, Zane, Zara, and Tyler, brother of Erica Dominic, uncle of Corinne Simmons, Ennis and Albert Matthew, Jacinta, Roland and Thaddeus Dominic, Luther, Roland and Michelle Bernard, father-in-law of Michael Otway, Ken Antonio Roberts, and Kama Henry. Many cousins, other relatives and close friends including Evelyn Sinek, Dominic, Earl Lang, Marjorie Collis, Jocelyn Ogilvie, John Henwood, the Charles and Edwards families of Tivoli, and friends and family of Mirabeau, Ashenden, Boulogne Agricultural Station, and loved ones and neighbours of St. James, Upper Capital, Ladigue, Dunfermline, and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Avil John Dominic Henry, also known as Skrill, of St. James St. Andrew, will take place on Monday, November 7th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Grenville Roman Catholic Church, and interment will be at the Grand Bras Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Paula Veronica Oliver of Wynwood, Carriacou, passed away on Monday, October 3rd, 2022, at the age of 50. She was the mother of Hanisha, Sashon, Shanice, Raheem and Patrice in Carriacou, and Camuel in the USA, grandmother of Ishta, Sanya, Riley, Shakel, Zayden, Zaria and Ava in Carriacou, Michaelia, Camuel Jr., Melia, Kay Marie, and Kaylee in the USA, sister of Laura, L'Oreal, Andrew, Randolph and Vincent in Carriacou, and John in the USA. Mother-in-law of Chantel Bethel and Regan McFarlane in Carriacou, and Kamala Pope in the USA. Sister-in-law of Yvette Oliver and Bernard Compton. Niece of Phyllis, Daphne, Vera and Verna in the UK, Zolita, Ezekiel and Dexter in Bequia, Olive in St. Vincent, Judith and Hervin in the USA, and Alan in Tortola. Aunt of 19, goddaughter of Marie George, Amy Ann, and Emily. Godmother of Jermaine MacDonald, also known as Tanti Germ. Close friend of many, including Esther Fleury, Deanna Darius, Ruth, Elvis, and Brother Pilgrim in Carriacou. Other relatives and friends including the Oliver families of Carriacou, Petite Martinique, and Grenada, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the McLawrence families, the McQuilkin, Compton, and MacDonald families, and friends and neighbours of Wynwood and surrounding areas, too numerous to mention. The funeral of the late Paula Veronica Oliver of Wynwood, Carriacou, will take place on Tuesday, November 8th at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Peter's and Paul Roman Catholic Church, Wynwood, Carriacou, and interment will be at the McLawrence Family Cemetery, Wynwood, Carriacou. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
Nikisha Bathsheba Joseph, also known as Nikki, of Concord St. John, a former employee of G4S Security Services, passed away on Tuesday, 18th October 2022 at the age of 35. She was the daughter of Shirley Ann Joseph Sandy and Lionel Pope, mother of Rihanna Joseph and Dylan Cador. Close and dear friend of Neron McIntosh, sister of Naisha Joseph Fentu, nurse Mindy Joseph, Kia Sandy, Nigel Joseph, Tyrone, Nimron and Jordan Sandy, aunt of Maya Ventu, Mina Felix, Angel and Ariel Joseph, Dwayne Felix, Nathan and Nashan Ventu, niece of Bernice, Claudeline, Hilary, Latoya, Cassandra, and Gwendale Joseph, Valerie Joseph, Michael in New York, Marvis Joseph in Miami, and Junior Blacks Joseph, grandniece of Glenn Andrews, Glennis Braffett, Agnes Thomas, referee George and Whitney Thomas, brother-in-law of Marlon Ventu and Dwayne Felix. Many cousins including Jada, Adele, Dalian, Chanel, Albert, and Talisha Joseph, Dan Marie Sandy, Nandi, Ashley, and Roger Thomas. Other relatives and friends including the Pope family, Shirley Hackett and family, the Redhead family of Concord, Dexton Cador and family, Dana McQueen, Delisa, DeAndre, Donnell Simon, Stephanie Graves, Sherry-Ann Henry, Vanessa Welch, Dr. Ann Cyrus, members of Blue Stars Sports and Cultural Club, management and staff of G4S Security Services, friends and neighbors of Grand Roy and Concord. The funeral of the late Nikisha Bathsheba Joseph, also known as Nikki, of Concord St. John, will take place on Tuesday, 8th November 2022 at 12:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at Garden of Remembrance Funeral Chapel, Cemetery Hill, St. George's, according to Church of God of Prophecy rites, and interment will be at the St. George's Center Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
Michael Edwards, also known as Nasa, Curtis, and Haggie, of Latan St. David, passed away on Sunday, October 23, 2022, at the age of 69. He was the father of Charlton Charles, a member of the Royal Grenada Police Force, Martin Charles, and Akil Charles, grandfather of 8, Martin, Markham, and Marcaden Klein, Michael, Marcaely, and Charlton Charles, Antoine Horsford, and Kamaya Coutain, stepfather of 4, father-in-law of Elona Klein Charles, brother of Patrick Roberts, Andre Edwards, Augustine Caliste, Denise, Patsy, and Gail in Trinidad, nephew of Shirley George, uncle of many including Kevin Thomas and Delon Edwards, cousin of many including Jean, Joan, Denise, Ian, Jacinta, and Gail in England, close friend of Jew James, Joan Charles, Roy Alexander, and Julius Fraser. Many relatives and friends in the surrounding areas of Latente, Pomrose, Mamacan, Apretut, Windsor Forest, Mardi Gras and Crowshoe. The funeral of the late Michael Edwards, also known as Nasa, Curtis and Haggie of Latente St. David, will take place on Tuesday, November 8th at 1:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Joseph's R.C. Church, Pomrose St. David, and interment will be at the Latente Family Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home.
Fitzroy Bernard Boson of Happy Hill, an ex-sergeant of police and former employee of the GIS, who resided at Bouchejou St. George, passed away on Thursday, 29th September 2022 at the age of 67. Left to cherish his memories, his mother, Elmina Boson, wife, Veronica, children, Stephanie, Karen, and Delroy, sisters, Ruby, Denise, and Brenda, brothers, Kellon and Winston in Trinidad, grandchildren, Tishon and Delia, aunt, Marinetta Haynes, brother-in-law, Crossford Haynes, sister-in-law, Aya, many nieces and nephews including Kelowna, KJ, Akimon, Keston, Kendall, Akeem, Jason and Jarvis. Other relatives and friends including Pastor Andrew from St. Vincent, Pastor Wisdom, Dr. Keith Mitchell, Glenroy, Joycelyn Thomas, Pearl, Lyneth, the Boson family of Happy Hill, Carriacou and Sotez, the Woodruff family of Happy Hill and Grand Mall, the Amade, Charles, Paris, Deganis and Williams family of Union, the boys on the block by the Blue Shop in Bouchejou, neighbors and friends of the surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Fitzroy Bernard Boson of Happy Hill St. George, who resided at Bouchejou St. George, will take place on Tuesday, 8th November 2022 at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Happy Hill Open Bible Church St. George and entombment at Top Fence Cemetery. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home.
Cynthia Ventoux, also known as Bridget, of New Hampshire St. George, who resided in the USA, passed away on Friday, October 14th, 2022, at the age of 75. She was the mother of Martin Ventoux in the USA, Vernessa Gilks, Krista Pascal Regis, and Tanisha Simon, grandmother of Chelsea Braffett, Michael Pascal, Zai Ventoux, Zava Gilks, Andy Charles Jr., and Kian Thomas, sister of Anthony Ventoux, aunt of Pamela and Joy Ventoux, Denise Samuels, Laurel and Yolande Whiteman, Claudette Isaac, Gillian Lewis, Daphne MacDonald and Claudette, Annette, Linda, Gloria and Decima, Brian, Wayne, Ian, Billy, Wayne Whiteman, Jimmy Charles, Chelwyn Ventoux, Jerry Charles, Enos MacDonald, Jimmy and Jerry, Dennis, Rodney, Matthew and Peter, sister-in-law of Norma Ventoux, mother-in-law of Rickson Gilks, Philip Regis and Alicia Charles. Many cousins, other relatives and close friends including Maria Frank, Errol Johnson, Albert Frank, Mavis Redhead, Adina Protein, the Frank family of Vendham, New Hampshire and Boca, the Ventoux family of Birchgrove, Grand Roy and Beaulieu, the Ross and Monkeytoe families of New Hampshire, Myrtle Bridgman, Lorna Charles, Cecilia Alexander, Brendan James, Kevin Harris, Claire Superville, and friends and neighbors of New Hampshire. The funeral of the late Cynthia Ventoux, also known as Bridget, of New Hampshire St. George, who resided in the USA, will take place on Wednesday, November 9th at 1:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the New Hampshire Seventh-day Adventist Church, and interment will be at the New Hampshire Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lackwell Brothers Funeral Home. Joseph Anselm John, also known as Oak and Pempem, of Lower Capital Birchgrove St. Andrew, died on Sunday, October 23, 2022, at the age of 64. Left to mourn are his wife, Anella John, children Kathy and Joseph and Tomisha Harriman, both in the USA, Takesha, Moa, Anselm Jr., and Makeda John, Cameron and Wendy and Charles, and Kendonna Harriman. Siblings Joycelyn, Tony, Esther, Fenric, Vaughan, Osbert, Albert, David in Trinidad, Kenneth, Judy-Ann and Deanne. 14 grandchildren, Christiane and Wise, both in the USA, Jekiah, Omika, Kimu, Jahim, Amelia, Addison, Malik, Naya, Kemlin, Kimron, Zayden and Ziva. Nieces and nephews Sherry, Siobhan, Josie, Joycelyn in Trinidad, Shamilka, Nissi, Moses, Daniel, Alana, Herschel, Glenroy, Cheryl-Ann and Joycelyn, both in the USA. Father-in-law of Shane, Kanyan, Alan, Sarika, Giselle and Sabrina. Brother-in-law of Sharon, Flint, Jacinta, Sherma, Carol, Claire, Franklin and Nicole in Trinidad. Close friends and family including Zoe, Keisha, Nikisha, Denny, Claudia Spare and family, Samantha Hassel and family, Altheus and Twine and family, the Perriman family of Birchgrove, the Berkeley family, Mr. Rowland and family, Yolande Bowen and family, Clary Bain and family, Catherine Mitchell and family, Peter, Sharon Stanislaus and family, the Noel family of Beauregard, Bishop George Fletcher and family, the parish priest, the members of the Men's League and the entire congregation of the St. Matthew's Catholic Church, and the Saturday market vendors of the St. George's Market, and friends and neighbours of Lower Capital Birchgrove and surrounding villages. The funeral of the late Joseph Anselm John, also known as Oak and Pempem, of Lower Capital Birchgrove St. Andrew, will take place on Wednesday, November 9th, beginning with tributes at 12:30 p.m. and service at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Matthew's Roman Catholic Church, Birchgrove, and entombment will be at the St. Rose Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Sister Gabrielle Mason, also known as Sister Gabs and Sita, member of the congregation of the Sisters of St. Joseph of Cluny, of Munich St. Andrew, died on October 28, 2022, at the age of 80. Left to mourn Sisters of St. Joseph of Cluny, niece Valerie Horsford, nephews Dr. Byron Caliste and Elvin Caliste, many relatives and friends including Wayne Horsford, Ellis and Sean Horsford, Arissa, Dr. Zania Louison, Essence and Hope Caliste, Mildred Cruikshank, Nordica Noel, Helena Mason, Winifred Teague and Margaret McSween, the Mason, Lord, Noel, Edward and Peter's families, the principals, staff and students, past and present, of St. Joseph's Convent St. George's and Grenville and in the diaspora, friends and neighbours of Munich, Crowshoe and surrounding communities. There'll be tributes for the late Sister Gabrielle Mason and evening prayer at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception on Wednesday, November 9th at 6 p.m. The funeral Mass for the late Sister Gabrielle Mason will be celebrated at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception, Church Street, St. George's on Thursday, November 10th at 10 a.m., followed by entombment at the Grand Bras Cemetery. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Teresa Thompson, also known as Miss Thompson and Nicey, of Montfendu St. Patrick, passed away on Saturday, October 15, 2022, at the age of 87. She was the aunt of Joseph, John, Carly, and Nigel in the USA, grand-aunt of many including Jamal, Anthony, Jaden, Imani, Ngozi, Michaela, and Jolene in the USA, devoted cousin Fred Belforn, caregivers Kendra and Jermaine, many other relatives and friends including the Belforn, Thompson, Bartholomew, Gordon, Moses, Mullins, Mercer and Paul families, and friends and neighbours of Montfendu St. Patrick. The funeral of the late Teresa Thompson, also known as Miss Thompson and Nicey, of Montfendu St. Patrick, will take place on Thursday, November 10th at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Patrick's Anglican Church, and interment will be at the Churchyard Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Lister Jude Noel, also known as Ferdista of Prospect St. Patrick, Passed away on Monday, October 17th, 2022, at the age of 30. He was the son of Marjorie Phillip and Ferdinand Phillip, stepson of Leroy Phillip, step-grandson of Martha Phillip, grandson of Maria Noel, Kinston Charles, and Agatha Wilson, brother of Alice, Alison, Alicia, Jarrell, Odote in Grenada, Ursula, Ferdinanda, and Nathaniel in Canada, close and dear friend of Cardisha McQueen, uncle of Alicia and Octavia, nephew of 13, nephew-in-law of Rosalind and Judelyn Noel, many cousins, other relatives and close friends including Lyndon, Travis, Alistair, Algie, Trix, Jonelle, Tillon, Shamali, Marlon, Kimani, Bradley, the Noel, Philip, Thomas, McLean, Mitchell and Salsiri families, members of the Hermitage and Privilege Theatre, Spice Mass Corporation, former employees of KM2 Solutions, Top FM, Shanty Mill School, and friends and neighbours of Prospect, Derby, Mount Alexander, Samaritan, Shanty Mill, Madays, Sautez, La Fortune, and Riversally St. Patrick. The funeral of the late Lister Jude Noel, also known as Ferdista of Prospect St. Patrick, will take place on Thursday, November 10th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Seventh-day Adventist Church, Sautez, St. Patrick, and interment will be at the Marley Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Claudine Nicholas of Molyneux St. George, former employee of Grandcase Caregivers Program, passed away on Monday, 17th October 2022, at the age of 65. Left to mourn are her children Rowan Nicholas in the USA and Wayndell Nicholas in Grenada. Siblings Lynette Harris, Eileen Thomas, Glenna, Celia and Philip Redhead, Joycelyn Ortiz, Dave Lowe, Wendy and Arlene Nicholas, all in the USA, Yolande Modeste, Patsy Lewis, Wayne, Collins and Arlene Nicholas. Stepfather Carly Joseph. Grandchildren Aria Mitchell, Rayon, Adele, Ariel, Adian, Ruel, Ace and Ava Nicholas. Many nieces and nephews, too numerous to mention. Daughters-in-law Riccadonna Nicholas and Anika Houston. Brothers-in-law Alfred Modeste, Dexter Lewis, Michael Pope and Alistair McIntyre. Sister-in-law of Andy and Anne-Marie Nicholas. Other relatives and friends including Nola Paul, Hazel Smith, Joycelyn Thomas, Sheena Murrell Joseph, Cleophas Edwards, the Nicholas, Modeste, Lewis, Morris and Woodruff families of Molyneux, the Harris families of Molyneux and Happy Hill, the Cador family of Fontenoy, the management and staff of Grandcase Caregivers Program, members of the Uganda Martyrs Church, and friends and neighbours of Molyneux, Happy Hill, Grand Mall, Fontenoy and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Claudine Nicholas of Molyneux St. George will take place on Thursday, November 10th at 1:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception, Church Street, St. George's, and entombment will be at the St. George's Centre Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Garvey Wilson of Bellevue St. David, who resided at New Hampshire St. George, a former employee of Hubbard's, died on Monday, October 17th, 2022, at the age of 34. Left to mourn his wife, Tamika Wilson, parents Eric Sylvan and Angela Wilson, siblings Alex Wilson, Gavon Wilson, Kimon Lalji, Aaron and Erin Sylvan, uncles Raul Wilson, Andrus Wilson, Emmanuel James, Winston Wilson, Teddy Joseph, Kevin Joseph, and Jefferson Joseph, aunts Bernadine McLean and Petra Toppin, Marsha Wilson, Patsy Wilson in the USA, Rachel Wilson in the USA, Anne-Marie Wilson, Jacqueline Sine in Canada, Rosalind Sine, Diane Sine, Jacqueline Gilbert, and Christine Sine. Grandmother Helen Wilson in the USA. In-laws Robin Lewis and Sherlyn Mapp. Cousins Bernard Wilson, Cassandra Wilson, Melissa Wilson, Nadia Sine, Carly, Nikisha Wilson, Selwyn Sine, David Sine, Kerry Wilson, Keon Wilson, and Ricky Sine. Other relatives and friends including the Joseph and Mackintosh families of St. David, the Sylvan family of Rosehill, the London family of Apretute St. David, the Julian family, and the MacLean family. The funeral of the late Garvey Wilson of Bellevue St. David, who resided at New Hampshire St. George, will take place on Thursday, November 10th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Agape Ministries Petite Esperance St. David, and interment will be at the St. David Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Margaret Christopher, also known as Margaret Lewis of Grandbra, who resided at Canal Road, Grenville, St. Andrew, passed away on Saturday, 29th October 2022, at the age of 92. She was the mother of Ellen and Jennifer, grandmother of Ellen and Bria, sister of Kate, grandmother-in-law of Sophia, aunt of 8, grand-aunt of many, cousin of many. Many other relatives and friends including Oliver Mason and family, Gillian St. Paul and family, Josephine Vincent and family, Nurse Tessa Alexander, the pastor and members of the Hills Road Church of Christ, Dr. Hensley Batiste and staff of the female ward at the Princess Alice Hospital, Roland, Mr. George, Doltris Findlay and family, Phyllis Bernard and family, Grenke's caregivers Grenville, and friends and neighbours of Grandbra, Canal Road, Grenville, and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Margaret Christopher, also known as Margaret Lewis of Grandbra, who resided at Canal Road, Grenville, St. Andrew, will take place on Friday, 11th November at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Hills Road Church of Christ, and interment will be at the Grandbra Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Roy Michael Macmillan, also known as Nuku, Bound to Bolt, Kelly Key, and Uncle Mac of Mamacan St. Andrew, passed away on Tuesday, October 18th, 2022, at the age of 81. He was the husband of Brendalyn Macmillan, father of Rexton, Sheena and Carvel in the USA, Cherise, Neltris and Neil in the British Virgin Islands, adopted father of Dwight and Chrissy, grandfather of Ashley, Takia, Jelani and Jella, Jaden, Alex, Sarah and Carly, AJ, Tonya, Hayden, Ashton and Nalia, son-in-law of Phyllis Fletcher, father-in-law of Joel, Ajani Johnson and Doneel Sylvan, brother-in-law of 10, uncle of Aidan, Gosville, Gaston, Matthew and Gilmer. Many cousins including Marion Thornhill, Heidi, Lyris, Sylvia Macmillan and family, Carly, John, Francis, Indra Macmillan and family, Keisha Alexander Grant, Atiba, Asher and Siobhan Mitchell. Many relatives and close friends including Cress, Rufus, Samuel Mahorn, Panchu, Dennis Cruikshank, Joseph, Rosalind John, Mike and family, Louisa Felix, Helena Mason, Shirlene Robertson, Roso Felix and family, Veronica Walker and family, Keith Japal and family, Doreen Eno, the Macmillan families of Mamacan and Munich, and the Celestine families of Mamacan and St. David. The funeral of the late Roy Michael Macmillan, also known as Nuku, Bound to Bolt, Kelly Key and Uncle Mac of Mamacan St. Andrew, will take place on Friday, November 11th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Martin de Porres Catholic Church, Crowshoe, St. Andrew, and interment will be at the Churchyard Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Albert Lucas, also known as Strong, of Lothers Lane, St. George, passed away on Tuesday, 1st November 2022, at the age of 66. The funeral arrangements for the late Albert Lucas, also known as Strong, of Lothers Lane, St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Matthew Deranget, also known as Soft Tire, of Moran St. John, who resided at Lamode St. George, passed away on Tuesday, November 1st, 2022, at the age of 77. The funeral arrangements for the late Matthew Deranget, also known as Soft Tire, of Moran St. John, who resided at Lamode St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
Police Constable 363 Daniel Joel James of Monfendu St. Patrick, a member of the Royal Grenadier Police Force attached to the Fire Department, passed away on Monday 24th October 2022 at the age of 52. Funeral arrangements for the late PC 363 Daniel Joel James of Monfendu St. Patrick will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
Christopher Belgrave, also known as Sabu, Pops and Papa, of Caliste St. George, passed away on Tuesday, November 1st, 2022, at the age of 79. The funeral arrangements for the late Christopher Belgrave, also known as Sabu, Pops and Papa, of Caliste St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. In loving memory of the late beloved son, brother, employee and friend, Shondell Kellon Harford, also known as Loverboy, Delop and Dell, of St. Cloud St. Andrew, who resided at Grand Bras St. Andrew, and passed away on Wednesday, November 3rd, 2021, at the age of 22. From sunrise to sunset, you are forever in our hearts. There is not a day, hour, minute or second that we don't remember your smile, warm words of encouragement, and even your corrections. Shondell, oh, how words cannot express the emptiness that is left in our hearts, since you left without saying goodbye. We know for sure it's God's perfect will, and someday our spirit will connect for eternity. Until then, we will continue to cherish every moment that we got to spend with you. Your dad, mom, sister, brothers, extended family, friends and fellow co-workers say continue to sleep in peaceful rest. The Harford family and management of Sammy's Ready Mix. Funeral arrangements were entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home.
The management and staff of MTV extend deepest condolences to those of you whose loved ones have passed on. Thank you for watching.
Death and dying are the inevitable events and realities of life. The passing of a friend or loved one often brings with it the feelings of sadness, grief, and pain. There is always the period of sorrow and mourning for those who experience such loss. Brothers and sisters, particularly in this time and season of how you feel and what you may be thinking as a result of the passing of your loved one, there is a source and means of comfort that you can tap into. That source and means of comfort is God and His Word that speaks specifically and directly to our situation. Hear the word to you today. He says, "Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted." What I believe he is saying through this verse to you and everyone that is now experiencing some measure of grief or sorrow, and what I also believe is implied in that which he says, are the following. Mourning is an understandable, normal, and real expression of your emotions. Mourning presents the opportunity for us to experience the comfort of family, friends, and loved ones. Mourning identifies us with each other in our humanity and morality. Mourning will not last forever. It is for a particular season and reason. Mourning connects us with the ultimate source and means of comfort that is always available to us, God, our Heavenly Father, through Jesus Christ. And so today, we look to the Lord in prayer, Him who is able to comfort us with the comfort that we need in times like these. God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, God of comfort, we pray even now for those who mourn and are in need of your comfort. May your love embrace them. May your grace afford them the strength for each day and hope for tomorrow. May you inspire and motivate them to stand upon the promises of your word, and may your Spirit lead and direct them to the ultimate source and means of comfort which can be found in you and the promises of your word. This prayer we offer through Jesus Christ our Lord.